one that we have to evolve.
Missing and murdered Indigenous women, residential schools, and the repatriation of cultural artifacts were also on the agenda. All three leaders will be in Westminster Abbey for the coronation.
We belong here. We belong at the coronation. We belonged at the funeral ceremony for the Queen because of that long historic relationship.
We must listen to the truth of the lived experiences of Indigenous peoples.
On his trip to Canada last year, King Charles said he and Camilla left with heavy hearts. Today was still about listening.
So I think he has a baseline understanding of the negative effects of colonization on First Nations and Inuit maintain in Canada. What we do about that, I think, is a new conversation, and how he, in his role as king, could use his influence to work with us on reconciliation efforts.
This Indigenous scholar points out talk is not action.
Unfortunately, the Crown has not listened in the past, so I don't have a lot of optimism that this Crown or this king will listen. At the same time, this king has shown more interest than his mother.
Outside the palace, the decorated mall is a draw for many visiting for the coronation. The Grand Chief of Manitoba, Kiwetinawi Okimakanak, is one of them.
I think that I'm here because of my ancestors.
For him, this represents past wrongs. He's here hoping for a better future.
I'm here because of the faith that they had in the treaties, and that they believed that these treaties would be respected, and they were not. But I'm here to represent them, and I hope that those treaties are recognized at this stage.
Renee, maybe a bit of a strange question, but do we know the King's thoughts here?
Well, his thoughts are coming from his representative in Canada, Governor General Mary Simon. She's the first Indigenous person ever to hold this position, and she helped coordinate this meeting. Now, in a statement, she says the King understands the importance of walking the path of reconciliation and how these discussions are so vital, and that they're going to start slowly and will form the pillars of a renewed relationship with Indigenous peoples built on respect and understanding.
All right, Renee, thank you. I had a conversation with the Governor General just after those meetings happened, and I asked then how she would characterize it.
The national leaders agreed that they didn't want to just lay on the table, these are the demands, because there's the relationship has to be built. This is the first time that a royal has actually met with 3 Indigenous national leaders that are elected by their people. So it was a moment in history, really.
And where do you take this moment?
I was kind of the moderator in some ways in the conversation, but I see myself as continuing to take this lead when I get back to Canada.
We'll have more of that conversation tomorrow as our coverage from London continues. And on Saturday, we'll bring you the King's coronation live. I'll be hosting CBC News special coverage from here at Buckingham Palace starting at 4 a.m. Eastern. Ian will be outside Westminster Abbey. You can watch on CBC TV, CBC News Network, Explore, and Gem. Now back in Canada.
Just wanted to showcase that, everybody. It was pretty pathetic. We had ICC here today, too. I should put up a title after, I guess. But I didn't want to miss it. I wanted to see what the spin was going to be, because I watched the whole interview today. And as well, I listened to Mary Simon in full detail. So it's pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic what they've cut out, because they know what they can say that people will fall for and what they will not. And I want to tell First Peoples this truth. All Canadians, it has to go out there. Since 1945, we have UN states. UK, while was welcomed as one of the allies, they made a deal with USA and the Federation of Russia. Now, people can believe, well, that's all different now. Joe Biden's going to restore everything. That's not the way the world's going. The world is not accepting it. None of those who have claim to the title of Indigenous. And what do I mean when I say those with a claim to Indigenous? It means they are not bound in any laws to push their people down, the original peoples. In Canada, they most certainly are. Every single one of these showcased Indigenous leaders, Mary Simon's words, are not Indigenous at all. They are all 100% under the Indian Act 1876. That's the Métis, that's the Inuit, all numbered treaties, and even unceded natives who never signed treaties and those off reserve. That is forced by the government of Canada. It was the UK when the UK ran the world. Old world order. Now, we just saw Manitoba chief. Oh, I'm going to go there. I want to be recognized in the treaties. Mary Simon's going there, an utter lie. 100% lie for all of her people and all the First People groups. They're all lying. Both presidents of the Métis and of the Inuit. They're lying. I can show you the ICC agreement with the United States and the Federation of Russia. And Canada would not bind in the Arctic Council with Russia and USA without the Indian Act. We can go on from there to 1956 when the greatest of all treaties was the Jay Treaty, is the Jay Treaty in the United States of America. For Mary Simon, Roseanne Archibald, and all the rest. Show me why Canada was able to scrub the Jay Treaty, the oldest treaty of the UK and the United States of America, and all First Peoples in Turtle Island. No division of American Indian or Canadian First Peoples. No division, none whatsoever. America says, we won't do it. They're all one people. Russia says the same thing. UK agreed. Canada said no. We're going to scrub that old treaty out. We're going to rub it out like all the rest. And they have. The creation of Canada came with a number of treaties for Canada alone. Since 1945, Canada administers it solely. If you haven't read the United Nations Charter, I suggest every first person does. Your treaty rights with UK and the royal family are gone. Now, UK holds the game for you. They can never act for you. They can never do anything for you. Nothing. What they do get is the Canadian crown, the one that Mary Simon is officially wearing. See, she gets paid a tremendous amount of money. She has a tremendous expense account. She lives like a Canadian queen. In order to get that, she must play the game with the royal family so that they get theirs. She acts as Canada's monarch so that they can act as the world monarchs of the Commonwealth. Everybody gets paid. By who? The subjects. The subjects of the Commonwealth must feed the money up. Our government distributes it to them out of the consolidated funds, and then they take from the consolidated funds themselves forever and a day. All pigs at the trough. Mary Simon, National Chief Roseanne Archibald, the President of the Métis, the President of the Inuit. They're all pigs at the trough, just like every Canadian politician. Shut up, subjects. You don't have any right to any representation on taxation. We will take from you whatever we deem necessary. The federal crown does it. The provincial crown does it. Horrendous crimes have been committed against all First Peoples groups, being committed right now today. Our politicians are guilty in international law. ICC Karim Khan comes here from the UK. He's a UK prosecutor elected after Donald Trump had the last ICC prosecutor thrown in sanctions, pretty much made a prisoner internationally. Accounts suspended, bank accounts locked out, much like the convoy. Why? Because they went after the United States, like they're saying go after Vladimir Putin. The problem is, according to the UN Charter, the P5 can never be touched. The ICC is the court under the P5. They can only recommend to the P5. Russia gets a veto. Russia was the president of the UNSC last month. Now this month it rotates. Now Karim Khan comes to Canada and says, listen, I'm not here for residential school genocide. I'm here for the Canadian government to pay our organization to go after Vladimir Putin. Canada is to pay. Because if Canada doesn't pay, then we have to go after you for genocide. UK says you pay or you lose your crown. And of course, Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, Governor General Mary Simon, Roseanne Archibald said, yes, the subjects, the slaves, the taxpayers will pay you tribute. Don't worry. Canada will fund it against the international laws of the United Nations, which run the world today as the UNSC P5. So now Canada is going after Russia, a P5 member who can veto us. And they have. They will never allow Canada to ever enter the United Nations Security Council. Not just Russia. China did it first, and you know who sponsored all the First Peoples in International Criminal Court? It was China. It was China. But so you see, Trudeau and his entire family are guilty of genocide. Even he is, and many of his MPs. So, of course, are Pierre Poilievre and many of his MPs, especially ones who've been around 20 years, guilty as charged. So's NDP. We can go through many of them. Elizabeth May, guilty as charged. They've seen these works put in. They've done horrendous crimes against the First Peoples they define as Indian savages, not human beings. They had no problem doing that. Now Governor General Mary Simon is just as guilty. So is Roseanne Archibald, so is the president of the Métis, so is the president of the Inuit. They don't care about their own people. They care about their own wealth, their own little crown they get. They play a game with the royal family. Royal family attached to UK. UK is a P5 power. They have a veto. They can protect Canada as UK protected South Africa for decades. Many decades. 1958 to 1993. But people like myself and many, many others rose up. Kept saying no, no, no. We watched Nelson Mandela spend 30 years of his life behind bars. His family hates the royal family. His grandson said, never, ever speak of my father. Never talk of my father. Never bring my father up. Take my father's name out of your effing mouth. The UK family won't talk about him anymore. Not to give him any tribute, not to talk about him, because it was the UK who over and over again in all the P5 reports kept vetoing any action against South Africa apartheid. They kept Nelson Mandela in jail. They allowed many South Africans to be abused to the point of massive human rights violations. This goes on in Canada today. Goes on in Canada today. It will never stop until we stop it. We can wait for the P5 to come around, or we can do it ourselves. And that's what I propose in our political party. It's what we have to do. We have to stop all the madness. We have to end the tyranny. We, the people, we have to do it ourselves. Belize just made a massive statement today. Go to hell, royal family, UK Parliament, and the Prime Minister. They told him go to hell. If we don't get an apology, and you don't repatriate us, we're leaving. We're done. We don't need to do a referendum. Our Constitution allows us, the parliamentarians, to make the vote. They figure they're going to have the vote done before Jamaica. They still need to do constitutional conventions as a republic. They will get it done. My friend Richard, talked to him tonight. He sees I'm pretty bummed out and having a hard time the last couple of days. It is tough. It is tough to watch the corruption mount, folks. Mount. It's devastating. It's horrific. It's gross. And you will always expect Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, all to come on with the corruption, all for the power of the crown, that power that absolutely corrupts. They're going to continue to do it. All they care about is the ultimate power and authority over all of you. We're watching it in Alberta politics. NDP and Danielle Smith, Rachel Notley, UCP, NDP, they don't have any different platform. They have exploitation of Alberta's resources for the benefit of the federal parties. They keep talking about energy and transition, both of them. Danielle Smith's very cool with natural gas taking over oil, and we're going to shut down oil and coal. I have a ton of friends who are losing their jobs at the end of the year. Coal mines shut down. Coal mines have been running for many decades, since my father was a child. And they're getting shut down, and even other mines have been running for nearly 100 years. They're getting shut down. Why? Because the politicians constantly remove the goalposts for the people of Canada. We don't even produce a carbon imprint. In this vast country, on very little land that we do possess, our carbon imprint is negative worldwide. The rest of the world is disgusting compared to Canada. Where 40 million people, our imprint is very, very small. In fact, it's negative. But that didn't excuse people from banning pipelines, banning infrastructure, banning any way for you, the people, to become wealthy. Because government doesn't want you wealthy. They want you locked down and in control. They want you slaves under the taskmaster's whip. That's what they do. That's what all constitutional monarchies do. And they're never, ever going to change. As we just saw, First Peoples didn't get an apology. Look at Belize. Look at Jamaica. Look at all the countries. There's 4 more. Just in the Caribbean alone. I could go through. Aruba. And more and more and more. And they're not going to take it. They said, no, we're done. We're done. People talk about Russia, China, and BRICS. The American dollar. The American dollar is not going to go down. Folks, do you know who's going to go down before the American dollar? We are. We are. Canada's number 101 on that. Do you think the U.S. people are going to suffer? Or do you think those who trade in the U.S. dollar are going to suffer? Because I have 6 Caribbean countries in real economics that are going to leave the constitutional monarchy and probably leave the American dollar because they don't want to be attached to London. And if that happens, that's $30 billion that 3 countries have to come up with. Do you know who those 3 countries are going to be? It's not going to be the USA. It's going to be Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Just like it was when South Africa left. Canada picked up the pace in all kinds of areas. So did Australia. Watch those 2 transition away from South Africa. We'll exploit Canada and Australia. Mostly Canada. We'll get all our resources for nothing. For absolutely nothing. But yet our Constitution says resources belong to you, the people. The First People and Canadians like. But yet the First People sit on 0.2% of Canada. Canadians sit on 9% of Canada. And the government continues to tax you without representation, taking everything they want, displace First Peoples whenever they want, no consultation, sell the resources for pennies on the dollar. We go through everything. Precious ores, precious metals, precious diamonds, minerals. We can go through powders, explosives, energy sources. Doesn't matter. We have it all in Canada. and over again. Your politicians give it away, pennies on the dollar, putting millions of dollars in their bank accounts for their 4 to 8 year terms or more if they're really good at conning all of you. And they get rich, and you all get poor. Their wealth grows, and yours goes down. And so the pyramid continues on. Constitutional monarchies don't work. The only reason why they're the most successful countries in the world today, the top 10 are constitutional monarchies, is because the mass amount of stolen resources and land that the subjects are not even allowed on. How wealthy would your country be if you can lock people away as peasants on the crown's land? Of course, it's going to be a wealthy country. You've got everybody living on a very little amount, struggling, and you take all the revenue from the people. It's worked for thousands of years. The people aren't very happy. They're not doing very good. That's the truth of it. That's the truth. When they start comparing all these other countries, look at the population differences. Look at the amount of crown land versus private property. Then you start to see, we're being bamboozled. We're being played. It's a game of fiction and statistics. Oh, look how big Canada is, but nobody's on that land. Nobody's allowed to harvest it, live on it, make a living on it, or do anything with it. Nothing. We'll see what comes in the next few days, but as it stands, Canada will never, ever sit on the United Nations Security Council again. Not with the political system we have in place and what we've committed to just in the last 2 years. What we've done, what our politicians have said, both aisles, doesn't matter. We're finished. Russia will never let us in. China will never let us in. It's game over. Now, Canada can keep attacking and pretending we're some kind of big force in the universe, but I'll tell you, a lot of stories today from all over the world, including the UK itself, and people are starting to say what's been said about Canada. You're a small country, 66 million in the UK, a little island state. Sure, you've got a manipulation around and a financial system that's tightly woven, and it makes the UK a lot of money. But that's coming to an end. They left the EU. They're not doing anywhere near as good as they were in the EU. Now they have to grab on to what colonials they have left who don't want them. Many of them now are saying, get away from us. We're done. Why would we let you exploit us any more? And they're getting away from it. They don't want it. Folks, we have to end the constitutional monarchy. We have to end this system, or we're going down the toilet. We will be the first down the toilet. America's not going down the toilet. We are. We are. And anybody attached to an ideology that you're going to have a class structure in a pyramid scheme in 2023 onward, it's not going to work. All this transition and all these things they say, green colonialism is all it really is. It's just another form of another pyramid scheme, a way of taking more wealth out of the people. Oh, it didn't work. We're going to switch back to that. Do you know I've been in power my whole life? My father was in power. When I say power, I mean power plants, generation. And, you know, my great uncle too, 3 generations of power generations. We can go out to Wobbleman, over 100 years old. It's long since mothballed now. But in old Wobbleman, it started natural gas, it went to coal, then back to natural gas, then to coal. Every time the people in that rural community out to Edmonton and the north, every time they paid those plants off, the government would switch it, the Crown would switch it. Oh no, we got to get away from coal. Coal's bad. Go to natural gas again. Oh, no, it's cheaper. Go to coal. We're going to coal now. We're going to switch it all back over. And the people keep financing, keep paying, keep debt loading to pay for a flip-flop. And they did this over and over many times. That's what's happening now, and they will continue to do this. We can flip into this, into that, into this, into that. And we'll just keep going around in circles and the game will be played. And meanwhile, they're debt loading all the people, stealing all your resources, pennies on the dollar, taxing you to pay for everything they're doing. It's sick, it's wrong, it's gross. It doesn't work. It's never worked. Pyramid schemes don't work. You all know this is true. And we are a caste system pyramid. That's what constitutional monarchies are. They don't work. And they only work as long as you can keep debt loading the next generation. But we've hit that point, that line in the sand, where it's over. It's over and we can't continue forward. USA is losing countries, but they're just going to reach on the grip of the countries they do have, who have nobody else to turn to. They've already alienated the other countries. Now USA is fine on its own. It could cash in all its assets, isolate itself again, and it would neutralize all their debt. But what about the rest of us? No neutralization there. That's real economics. That's the real tale of the tape. Canada has tremendous resources, tremendous amount of land that should be in the hands of all First Peoples and all Canadians. We take this turtle island, we divide it in half. At least Canada for Canadian First Peoples and Canadians. At least divide that 91% nearly Crown land, federal and provincial. Quit with the Crown. It doesn't produce stability. Well, it does. Stability with a whip. Stability with those who have no choice but to have their hands out, begging for jobs, begging for money, begging for food. Oh, beg, where's the next big job going to be? I need money, I need money, I need money. When it's all right there for all of us. All of us. And we can make a system together. We can make a better system. They keep saying, oh, what would that look like? We the people worked very well in the United States, and that's very old. It's the oldest one in the world. Oldest constitution in the world. We can take that. We can make way, way better. And not only that, look at all the countries in the world. Comparative analysis with the world's greatest legal minds in every nationality, every minority language clearly found in Canada, plus all the First Peoples languages. It's not baloney. My friend Richard Albert's out there, as I have many more than just Richard. Richard has a big group, but you know what? There's many others. There's many, many others. From one side of the States to the other, from one side of the world to the other. I think I'm the only one who has a communist Chinese. I'm probably the only one. For a while, I had the Federation of Russia. I know I'll get it back. I don't know when that's going to be. I will get that back, and I will go to Russia when it's convenient and open. Obviously not now, but nothing lasts forever, and I can promise you all, Canada has no say in any of that in the world. When USA decides, when the world of the UNSC decides, they decide, and everybody goes with it. The problem is the UNSC P5 always come to terms, but if you're not a UNSC P5 and you violated any of those members, you can never undo that. And forever and a day, they can boycott you, they can veto you, they can do tremendous things against you. That was decided in World War II, and Canada should know it because they helped craft the UN. But they were foolish, especially now. Maybe it's out of desperation, maybe it's a need for their own crown, their own need to have that control and that power. But they're failing miserably, and it's showing day after day. The more we go forward, Richard in Jamaica, Belize on the center stage, then Canada's got to scramble, the Crown's got to scramble. The scrambling is turning into a scrambled egg, and I think people are waking up. I see Canadians for the first time have never been so distraught with the Crown. I hope that continues down. They have Bill C-11. All you see on the news all day long now is coronation, the greatness of the Crown, all the stability. You can't make it on your own. It's like, we need our sovereignty. We need to be a nation. It's what our ancestors fought and gave their lives for in World War II, for our sovereignty, the promise of sovereign nations, the UN Charter, 1945, each and every nation. Why wouldn't you want that? Why do we allow Canada to continue like this? Full-on autocratic dictators, worshipping far-off tyrants, people who do nothing for you but bleed you of your wealth. People trip over quarters to pick up pennies. Oh, I want more socialism. I want someone to work for me. Wouldn't it be better if we could all just work for ourselves and our own wealth, make our own way? Think about that. 35 acres for every man, woman, and child. 1,000 acres for every man, woman, child, First Peoples. That's what we're looking at here. Think of the wealth then, the options then when you talk about constituting the rights to your resources, your land, your water rights. We all share natural resources above, below ground. Rules of governance, how to govern, accountability, things that escape Canada to this day. Having an independent judiciary, an independent legislative, an independent executive, checks and balances through all of them, checks and balances of your whole justice system all the way through. These are important things that made a lot of countries great, more than just the U.S. U.S. is good, but there's problems with it. Again, it's the oldest one. You can do better. You can learn from mistakes. You can build better. And that's the truth. I hope people get the video out. Share it. That was a sick demonstration we saw from the Canadian government, the First Peoples, the leaders of the First Peoples, clearly in bed with the Crown, who don't have the interests of the First Peoples. Again, myth busted. Nothing in the UN Charter supports anything we just watched. In fact, it's contradictory to the Allies of World War II. It's contradictory to international law. And we live it. We worship it. And they propagate it on TV like that is what the UN taught you. The corruption of now a General Assembly, the lowest tier of the UN, nothing of that is bound into law. Nothing of what we just watched on TV is any kind of example ever left in any world history since World War II. It's Canada's propagation. The royal families lie. A lie that they happily play with all the constitutional monarchies. Many are waking up. Canada, you're a tremendous country with a small population. When are you going to wake up and say, hey, we have a lot of wealth here. We can be extremely wealthy. We can be a strong nation. We can be sovereign people. All of us. For the first time ever. Tremendous powers for all the First Peoples. Tremendous. You've never had in all your lives since your ancestors who invented federalism. Federalism removed from you entirely. I certainly don't hear Mary Simon talking about that, and I could bring on 100 experts to make mincemeat out of her and Roseanne Archibald and all of those, the president of the Inuit and the Métis, make an ass out of all of them and show the patheticism of how they've treated their own people. They're just as guilty as the crummy politicians we have in Canada today, both federally and provincially. It's sick, it's wrong, it's gross. There is a justice system waiting for them, but it's us, the people, who have to show the UNSC that we're smarter than they are, smarter than they give us credit for, and we're not just silly subjects and stupid savages sitting back waiting till what? Till we're nothing? Because that's what's going to happen. This election, 2025, is going to be huge. 2024, we get to introduce ourselves on a 5 EDA, 3 in Alberta, 1 in BC, 1 in Ontario. We get to introduce ourselves, our party, and what we're going to do. And that is going to help propel us to 2025. And you, the people, all the people, we get to see the platform and how it all applies to you. We're going to need really courageous individuals. The Crown positions, we're going to show you how to dismember all this with just the Crown power. That Crown power that corrupts absolutely everybody. We're going to show you how to take that, just like a little hobbit had to do in the oldest stories. Had to go up to a mountain and throw it in because he could resist that ring that ring that unites them all, the other 10 rings, the 10 provinces, the 3 territories, unites them all, right? An evil ring, the crown of the UK, a magical baloney that's just a way to corrupt people in a pyramid scheme. Oldest system going, and we need to destroy it. Thanks, everybody. That's my video. I know it's late. Share, get it out there. Hopefully it gets picked up tomorrow morning. People get on board. Bye now.